Good morning, whoever's watching, which is nobody. But something been on my mind. Hey, sweetie. And just wanted to put down my thoughts about it for posterity. We'll never see it in my lifetime, which isn't a really long time. But one thing I wish we had in the United States was universal health care. A lot of people say, no, it's too expensive. We can't do that. I believe that America is the greatest nation on earth, and that if we put our minds to it, we could do it. You can't tell me that we can put a man on the moon 50 years ago. We can topple governments. We can create, amazing things like the internet. And we can't have universal health care. Yeah, it's a bullshit argument. It's a defeatist argument. The argument I actually respect more is that, people don't deserve health care, free health care. Okay, I disagree with that argument, but if you want to make that, at least you're being, sincere. Now, I'm not a person who thinks all life is sacred. I've said this before. Not all lives are equal in value. My old dying ass is not of the same value as, the little girl who lives next door and has her whole life ahead of her. If someone has to die between those two people, it should be me. But ideally, nobody has to die, necessarily. The purpose of government is multifold. Okay? Securing our borders, defending our people from attack, dealing with crime. All those things are to protect the health of the people in a nation. Right off the bat, government is saying that, yes, we have an obligation to protect our people. Healthcare is one of the most important things you can do to further that end. I do believe that government has a moral obligation to its citizens to be a boon to them in as much a manner as possible. So right off the bat, I think healthcare is a moral necessity for any government that's capable, that has the economic resources to engage in it. Beyond that, healthy people work more. Now, I've never been able to find a study that says what the improvement to the GDP would be if we had less people, calling in sick or dying, of cancer or whatever. But it has to be, in my mind, at least visibly beneficial to our economy. Now, if someone could ever show me how that was wrong, maybe I would, slightly rethink my thoughts on universal health care, or at least come up with different arguments. But in the end, it's, take out the economic stuff. Okay? It's a moral issue. And, should morality be a guiding force of government? No, that's a conversation we could have. I guess a libertarian would be, a opposed to that. But really, doesn't everything come down to morality? Every action that we engage or don't engage in. I hate to see people suffering. I wish that we could help all those who need help, whether it be health care or housing or food. And you know, and yeah, there's a very strong argument about being a nanny state. I believe that if you're capable of working, you should. However, there should be a social safety net for those who can't help themselves. Immediately I think of kids. Whenever someone is like, oh, we need to cut free lunches, free breakfasts. Yeah, no, we don't. We can afford to feed, kids. Okay. We cut that off, they may go hungry. You may be saying, well, Mike, we don't know they'll go hungry. Well, yeah, you're right. Okay. But some would. There is, that's not something I'm comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with anything that hurts kids. If my tax dollars go to giving, Jack or Jill in first grade some a healthy, nutritious breakfast because their parents, for whatever reason, cannot or will not give that to them, then okay, yeah, I'm down with that. No society lets their children suffer. The mark of a society, as has been said much more eloquently by men much smarter than me, is that you judge a society based on how it treats the least of its peoples, the most helpless of its peoples, the peoples who cannot help in return, at least at that point in time. America is the most generous nation on earth. We've got a lot of problems, not gonna lie. But at the end of the day, we help people. And we should be helping our own as much as we can. Before we help anybody overseas, we should be helping our own. No one should be homeless in America, unless it's by choice. No one should be hungry in America. No one should die because they couldn't afford health insurance and then had to be rushed to the emergency room when symptoms became unbearable. And that's another thing, man. I mean, when uninsured people go to the emergency room, it makes it more expensive for all of us. You wonder why an aspirin costs $10 or a Band-Aid $25. A not insignificant part of the rising expenses we've seen since the 1970s is uninsured people going to the emergency room, and I don't blame them. I mean, you do what you gotta do. But uninsured people going to the emergency room, and then the rates for insurance and all the expenses go up for everybody who doesn't, who does have insurance. So if we provide universal health care for all these reasons, I think we'd be a better society. I think we'd be a more economically profitable society. I think we'd be a more moral society. So if you disagree, that's fine. It's a nuanced subject. But those are my thoughts.